Welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in John chapter 6. Now, last study, I kind of paused and dealt with uh, one of the foundational verses of the Calvinist doctrine or Calvinist Reformed theology / predestination doctrine. I'm going to go back and just kind of go through now, but I wanted to deal with how they take, and this is always dangerous, and every denomination does this. So whether it's water baptism theology, that those who believe that you have to be baptized in water in order to get into heaven, living holiness doctrine, that you got to live holy in order to get into heaven. It doesn't matter. They always find their key verses that they take out of context. And as we are moving through John chapter 6, this is why I told you from the beginning, it's important to kind of keep in mind what John 6 is about. So it wasn't about Jesus, almost like he couldn't wait to make his case that not all of y'all going to be saved anyway. And of course, the Calvinist doctrine is different because, again, it's like, what's the point of the gospel if Calvinism is true? If God has already chosen some to be saved, then why preach the gospel? Because you're already saved. And those who are not chosen, those whom the Father did not give, they're never going to be given. And they will never, ever, ever have a chance to be given. This is their doctrine. This is their word. They will never have a chance at heaven, no appeal for mercy. You're not chosen, you're doomed. This is what Calvinists say. But anyway, let's move on. And get back to the chapter itself. Now, I'm going to go back to where this started and read through so that we can, again, keep the context. So I'm going to go back to verse 22 and start reading through. It says the next day. Now, remember, Jesus had fed the 5,000. He had also healed the sick. And this was over a course of a couple of days, ending with him feeding the 5,000 men. They are like, oh man, let's go find Jesus. Jesus leaves. You have the incident of him walking on the water. He leaves. They say, well, wait a minute, where did Jesus go? And then they get into a boat. They cross the lake, the Galilean lake, Lake of Galilee, I think it's called, to find Jesus. And when they come to Jesus, let's pick it back up. This is where we are. And then we can also keep the context, okay, of everything that's going on. So these people, by the way, these were also the people that tried to gather because of the signs and wonders that they saw Jesus perform, namely, and it turned out with this crowd, it was namely the feeding, right? They was like, oh, they were really impressed. And which Jesus says, y'all not even seeking me for the signs and the wonders. Okay, anyway, here we go, verse 22. The next day, the crowd that had stayed on the other side of the sea knew there had been only one boat. They also knew that Jesus had not boarded the boat, with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone off alone. Some boats from Tiberias came near to the place where they ate bread after the Lord gave thanks. And when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they got into the boat and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And Jesus answered, I assure you, you are looking for me not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves and were filled. And that's a kind of amazing, really, it's like, wow, okay. In other words, feed us, Jesus. And then he says, don't work for the food that perish, but for the food that lasts for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has had his seal of approval upon him. Now again, in contrast to what our Calvinist brothers teach, why would Jesus tell them that if some of them are not even chosen? All right. But the fact that, notice, he tells him, don't work for that food, but notice, and you're going to see this theme of the bread of life in this chapter. So keep that in mind. And notice then, here's what Jesus tells them. Don't work for the earthly food, right? The fish sandwiches. Don't work for that, but work for the food that doesn't perish. And then he says, which I will give you, right? Which I will give you, right? Now understand the language. So who is he going to give eternal life to? Those who work for that eternal life. Now watch the setup. What can we do to perform the works of God? They asked, and Jesus replied, this is the work of God, that you believe in the one he has sent. So that's the work of God. Not commandments to perform, but to believe, right? To believe. So this is the work of God, that you believe in the one he has sent. And then they say, well, what sign are you going to do that we may see and believe you? They asked. Now remember, this is the same crowd that just the day before were going to force Jesus to be king. And now this is the same crowd that saw and experienced. They ate the food and they saw it being multiplied. And now they're saying, well, what sign are you going to do? What sign are you going to do that we may see and believe you? They asked. What are you going to perform? Our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, just as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. This is astounding that they would ask that. And just since the day before, they ate multiplied bread. Verse 32, Jesus said to them, I assure you, Moses didn't give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the real bread from heaven, for the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Not just to some. Then he says, they said, sir, give us this bread always. I get dizzy just kind of like the wishy-washy of these people here. Verse 35, he says, I am the bread of life. Jesus told them, no one who comes to me will ever be hungry, and the one who believes in me will never be thirsty again. Now, all right, anyway, I'm tempted to try to further break down Calvinist thing, but all right, verse 36. But as I told you, you have seen me, and yet you do not believe. Everyone the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me, I will never cast out. So you see these two statements here. That one, Jesus kind of declares to them, everyone that the Father gives me. So again, how do you take a statement like that? So we can also kind of add, is Jesus saying, especially to them, you can't come to me unless God has given you to me. Is that what he's saying? So basically, he's making a statement that everyone that the Father gives me will come to me, that they are demonstrating by their what? Unbelief that you're not given. The focus point, though, is not that, okay, that God is given. That's not the focus point that Jesus is making here. Why? Because remember, he had already told them, work for the eternal bread, eternal life bread, right? So he already told them that. He already told them that the bread, he is the bread that comes down from God, that his flesh is given for the life of the world. Believe on him. He's telling them, this crowd. So if he meant by now this statement to the same crowd, that they're not included in those whom God has given, then why did he tell them previously to work for something that they cannot obtain? Anyway, everyone that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me, I will never cast out. Why does he need to say that to those whom are chosen? Because according to Calvinist doctrine, those who are chosen regardless. They're chosen apart from their will. They're chosen apart from their choice. So why do you need to say, I will never cast out? Okay. But here is the assurance. If you come to me, I will never cast you out. The bigger question is, why won't they come? And it's certainly not what Calvinists teach. In other words, according to Calvinists, they won't come because God didn't choose them. That's not the statement that Jesus is making here. They're not coming because of their unbelief. Now, verse 38, for I have not come down from heaven, for I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose none of those he has given me, but should raise them up at the last day. For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have eternal life, and I will raise him up in the last day. Now we see this in two different perspectives, the way I see this. One from God's perspective, and then you can say one from what we see and what we are responsible. Our responsibility is to respond to what God has given. The question is, why don't we respond? That's kind of the heart. To understand this, why the crowd that Jesus fed just the day before, the crowd that Jesus fed, that they sought him. Remember, they traveled the Sea of Galilee to come to him. One, they were going to force him to be king. They were also going to force, hey, you know what, we can get some more food here. So the question is, why aren't they accepting what God has given? So the question is, what did God give? His Jesus' flesh for the life of the world. Why aren't they believing in that? They said, what can we do to work the works of God? Believe on the one he sent. Well, they're not believing on the one he sent. So everyone, verse 40 again, but this is the will of the Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him will have eternal life, and I will raise him up in the last day. Verse 41. Therefore, the Jews start complaining about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. And they were saying, isn't this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I've come down from heaven? So now we sort of see the root of their unbelief. We know this dude. We know Jesus. We know his family. So we kind of see now the unbelief. And in the other gospel, the Bible, we see that the Bible said that he marveled at their unbelief. And this, in spite, remember, that they had seen the miracles. Verse 43, Jesus answered them, stop complaining among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. So again, is this a slam dunk for Calvinists? No. What is what this is what he's not saying. He's certainly not saying this to them. God is not drawing you. And then we can ask, well, what is the basis of being drawn? What is the basis of receiving eternal life? He's already told us. He's been saying this throughout this chapter. Believe on the one he's given. Believe on the one he's given. What they have been showing, what they have been demonstrating, is what? Unbelief. So then he goes on and says, "Don't want." So stop complaining. They were complaining. They were debating. In other words, let's kind of read it in between the lines here. How can we believe? How can this Jesus whom we know be the Messiah? How can this Jesus be, right, have eternal life and all of these things he's claiming? Now remember, this is the same crowd that saw him the day before. So when he comes down now, he's going to tell them, okay, in light of they're rejecting Jesus. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will be taught of God. Everyone who has listened to and learned from the Father comes to me. Right? So again, quite plain and simple, isn't it? He's responding to their unbelief. He's not declaring that, let's say, whatever the crowd there was there, whatever the crowd, let's kind of go back to the day before. And you say the 5,000 men. If we follow the Calvinist line of thought, that not all of the 5,000 there would even have a chance to be saved. God didn't call them. All that the Father gives will come to me. So all the 5,000, they don't have a chance. Except that's not what's being communicated in here at all. Verse 45 again, it is written in the prophets, and they will be taught by God. Everyone who has listened to and has learned from the Father comes to me. And not that anyone has seen the Father except the one who is from God. He has seen the Father. Now Jesus, of course, is basically repeating what John 1:1, he is God without saying it. Verse 47, I assure you, anyone who believes has eternal life. Right there, anyone who believes. What would be the point of making this statement to those who are dead in sin, in spiritual darkness? What benefit would that be to say this to them? So he says, anyone who believes has eternal life. Of course, from the beginning of John, this has been the consistent theme of salvation. He says, I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread of life that come down from heaven so that anyone may eat of it and not die. So right here, if the Calvinist is true, Jesus is lying, because not anyone, if you're not chosen, you can't eat of it. And you go back to the very statement in verse 37, all that the Father gives me will come to me. He never said you can't come. And we also know why they can't come. But notice what Jesus is saying here again, over and over. I am, verse 51, I am the bread of life that comes down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. Now, who does he give the life? What, his flesh? Who is it given for? What is it given for? Notice this, the world. Now, again, the world, when we look at the people of the earth, the term world itself, it means ordered system. So the first thing of world could be, the solar system. And the idea of the common thread of the meaning, it would be the ordered system. So you look at the universe, the ordered system. There's an order about the universe. and the planets, the orbiting of the planets. And then you can have on the planet, the world could mean the systems of the planets. And then again, there's an order to it. The financial system, the government, the religious systems, okay? And so all what makes up the world, okay? And then there's the people of the world, okay? There's the people of the world. And so when he said that he gave us his life, now I have to say this and I have to chuckle when I say this, because one of the things they seriously try to plant doubt in your mind is, well, we can't see, well, what does he mean by world? Well, let me ask you a question. When Jesus said that he gave his life for the world, are you confused? Like, do you think he means the systems of the world? Do you think he means the universe? Again, religion, tradition is always funny. But anyway, all right, so we're going to pick this up, obviously, in the next the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.